1964. At 16, Sandie Shaw is discovered by singer Adam Faith at a concert in which they both perform. At the time she was working at Ford, Dagenham. While waiting to record, she is also working as a photographic fashion model. At 17, she began her career as an international singing and recording star, soon enjoying her first worldwide #1, Always Something There to Remind Me. By the end of the decade, she had notched up over 20 top 40 hits in the UK alone, including more #1s than any other female British artist, and captured the imagination of an entire generation globally. These records, all self-produced, perfectly distill the essence of that generation. All performed barefoot. 1965. Sandie has more hits and another worldwide #1, Long Live Love. Finding she has a natural linguistic skill, she starts recording and performing internationally in French, German, Italian, Spanish and other languages, with hit songs like Pourvu que c'est dur, Et Avro, Viva l'amour contigo, Viva el amor, Baby ich lieb dich so, und so was nennst du nun lieb, Mañana, Tujas un coin qui me rappelle, and No Vendra, plus numerous albums in various languages, and in territories worldwide. She begins her regular Europe-wide visits for TV appearances, press, recording and concerts. Franco always insists that his children and grandchildren have seats whenever she performs in Spain. In Paris, she storms the audience at the prestigious l'Olympia Theatre and steals the headlines. Johnny Hallyday, the French Elvis, takes her under his wing, and she joins him on tour across France. Germany calls out brass bands to greet her as she descends. In Italy, they are entranced by La Cantata Scalza, and she loves being there, as the only British artist the Italians have taken to their hearts. And so on across Spain, Portugal, Germany, Scandinavia, all Europe and beyond to the world. 1966 Sandie is now the face and voice of the swinging 60s everywhere, the epitome of how her generation wants to look, sound and be. She engages in a triumphant cross-generational, cross-cultural exchange around Europe and the world, touring, promoting and absorbing cultural influences, an exercise in British soft power. She continues to enjoy massive international and national news coverage, as well as television performances and documentaries of her work and life, like no other British female artist before or since, and all this without a publicist. From the start, her recordings are financed and produced by income from her first hit. She styles her own clothes and hair and designs her own record covers and photo shoots, while her manager books and promotes her shows. The press needs no encouragement, they follow her everywhere. For a recording artist, especially a girl, to be so much in control of her own work is unprecedented. All her record company does is manufacture and distribute the records to the shops. And she is still only a teenager. 1967. Sandie continues performing, collecting accolades and awards, creating waves of excitement wherever she goes, as well as absorbing cultural influences and exchanging her own unique and contemporary view of the world. She also attains an unparalleled runaway win in the Eurovision Song Contest with Puppet on a String, which gives her another worldwide #1, selling over 5 million copies at the time, and more in subsequent years. She herself designed that pink Eurovision dress, which has too become so famous that it is now in the Victoria and Albert Museum. The Daily Mirror even recommends her for a royal honor, which she does not receive. Sandie also surprises everyone by becoming the first Western artist to perform live behind the Iron Curtain. The concert was filmed in Bratislava, Czechoslovakia, and televised throughout the USSR. Before this, her recordings were bootlegged in places with no access to Western pop music. Her first bootleg release in the USSR is a double-sided single with the Beatles. Foreign press critics comment, "The Sandie Shaw look, barefoot and mini-clad, is sweeping across the planet. She represents the illusions and freedoms of the wider world." More performances followed in the Cold War years of the 60s and 70s. Music allows Sandie to pull back the Iron Curtain to introduce millions of fans to British and Western culture. This becomes a political soft power revolution for Britain and by a female artist, too. 1968 as the face, voice and fashion of the swinging 60s everywhere, the epitome of how her generation wants to look. Sandie designs and models her own collection of clothes and shoes for the Sandie Shaw Clothes label. Her designs appear in shop windows and fashion magazines all over the world. Adele Rootstein creates a mannequin of Sandie, pairing it with one of Twiggy for high street stores to put in their windows. At 21, Sandie marries fashion designer Jeff Banks. In 1968, she was invited to entertain the military junta in Greece. As instructed by her manager, Eve refuses to go on stage until she is paid in cash. The generals and colonels must rush out to find and give her the notes in dollars in a huge army bag. She carries the bag on stage, where she can keep an eye on it, dancing around it as she sings. Franco closes the border to Gibraltar. When Sandie is booked to sing there, she is smuggled to the venue in a fishing boat, hiding under the fishing nets. She conceives a groundbreaking 6-part TV series for the BBC, The Sandie Shaw Supplement, which is a precursor of the music video format. It still forms part of film connoisseurs' collections and dreams. 1969 Since Nelson Mandela was imprisoned in 1964, Sandie has been sending funds to the ANC. She decides to ignore the MOO's advice to ban artists from going to South Africa, and visits the country to find out for herself how her funds are being used. It was a profound and shocking experience. She performs in concert halls and in townships of makeshift homes where the rain pours in through the roof as she sings to an ecstatic and welcoming audience, who keep rushing outside to find pans to catch the water from each new roof leak. The police arrive when she sits on a man's knee to sing, as this is an infringement of the anti-apartheid laws. But the audience crowds surround Sandie and keep moving around so the police cannot get near, while Sandie slips out the back. She then stays in a tribal settlement with the king and his wives and children. To honor the African culture and the beauty of the land and the tribes in the Kingdom of KwaZulu-Natal, she makes a series of photographs in the Valley of 1,000 Hills, modeling the modern clothes of South African designers and accompanying them with the incredible beaded work of the tribe. She camps out in the chef's village huts, and during the filming, the women make her a beautiful, beaded belt to hang around her hips. She finishes the decade with a surprising album, which some consider her best album of the 60s, reviewing the situation. Music cognoscenti are fascinated to this day by its unusual tracklist and style. Surprisingly, as well as everyday working-class people, young and old, who take her to their hearts, Sandie is embraced by aristocracy, millionaires, intelligentsia, politicians, anyone who is anyone, establishment, or anti-establishment. She catches their imagination and charms them all, as a true icon of our times. 1970 At the request of the popular Chancellor of West Germany, Willy Brandt, Harold Wilson invited Sandie to visit 10 Downing Street to charm him. Wilson acknowledges her as a soft power influence for his political campaign to join the European Common Market. Having become a wealthy self-made woman in the space of just 6 years, Sandie decides to take time out to have a baby. Her pregnancy is documented by first and last of its kind monthly, double-center-page progress reports and photos in the Daily Mirror. She is also the first and last artist invited to perform for the Shah of Iran, which she does in Farron Park for the people. It is hot, she is heavily pregnant at the time, and eager to return home, but the Shah dithers endlessly about the date for a requested palace performance, and the Iranian state holds onto her passport. This becomes a diplomatic incident. The Foreign Office enlists the support of diplomats, who send reports back to Britain, and she is finally allowed to leave. In 1971, she gave birth to a daughter, Grace. She ends her business relationship with Eve Taylor, her manager, and semi-retires from public life. 1972 to 1977 A 5-year sabbatical where, away from the public eye, she enters a period of intense creative output, which is even more stunning as it is achieved in a time of immense personal turmoil. 1972 Sandie sets up Tatum Music, a song publishing company that is also a music house for musicians and writers, and a recording session booking agency, based in central London. She begins honing her songwriting skills with Herbie Flowers and Roger Cook from Blue Mink. 1973 to 1974, she writes the book for a fantasy musical, and then composes the accompanying music with Roger and Herbie. She also embarked on a collaborative partnership with the acclaimed Russian Parisian artist and designer, creating with him the costumes and characters for the musical. Sandie pursues her love of writing and painting kids' books. 1975 to 1976, she tried her hand at theatre acting, in the role of Ophelia in Shakespeare's Hamlet, then in a much more demanding role as Bernard Shaw's St. Joan. She continues to work on her musical production, and opens discussions about a film of the musical with Italian director Fellini. But by this point, her husband Jeff's financial mismanagement of his own business has suddenly led to the loss of all of Sandie's earlier fortune, and she embarks on soulless tours to help pay back his debts. They end up homeless, living in a caravan parked in a field in Ireland, with Grace and Jeff's mum, to look after Grace, as Sandie and Jeff are mostly away working to pay off his debts. 1977 Sandie is hospitalized and operated on because of sudden illness. She almost dies and then suffers from physical and emotional collapse, the previous 5 years of constant stress, anxiety, and depression culminating in a breakdown. On leaving the hospital, she separates from her husband and started living as a single mother with her daughter Grace in a simple rented flat with no TV, washing machine, or heating. Lit mainly by candlelight. Part 2. 1978 Here begins Sandie's lifelong commitment to Nichiren Buddhism of Soka Gakkai International, a non-governmental peace organization member of the United Nations. She subsequently teaches and introduces many thousands of people to practice. At this point, her life begins to change dramatically, and things start to go her way again. 1979 to 1980, as she regains confidence, she is inspired to start writing and singing again, putting together songs that will become the album, Choose Life. She works as a waitress in Soho to pay the bills and goes back on the road, quietly doing grim third-rate gigs to fund recording for the album. 1981 Sandie was approached out of the blue by Virgin Records to record with Heaven 17, creators of the hip album, Penthouse and Pavements. She releases her version of Anyone Who Had a Heart, as part of the British Electronic Foundation's album, Music of Quality and Distinction. And then, in another out-of-the-blue moment, Chrissie Hynde invites Sandie to join the Pretenders on stage. She is invited through the Trade Department to perform on behalf of British culture, in Chile for a televised show to celebrate Great Britain. 1982 Sandie pays off the last of her first husband's debts, and he finally agrees to a divorce. Now, already pregnant with their daughter, Amy can marry her new partner, Nick Powell, a pioneering British film producer and chairman of the European Film Academy, National Film and Television School, as well as co-founder and chair of the Virgin Group. Her life turns into a completely new direction. Her home is filled with piles of scripts, as she attends film premieres and personally hosts royal guests, such as Princess Anne and Princess Diana. 1983 to 1985. In one more crazy out-of-the-blue moment, Morrissey and Johnny Marr, from the seminal 80s band The Smiths, write Sandie a fan letter. They tell her she has been influential and inspirational in 5 of their work and ask if she would consider working with them. This was the start of a truly bizarre relationship that turned people's heads. It resulted in a genuine cross-generational collaboration that took everyone by surprise and brought Sandie once more to the forefront of the public imagination. They performed barefoot together on stage in the UK and Europe, and she recorded heart-stopping interpretations of songs like Hand in Glove, I Don't Owe You Anything, and Jean. The single, Hand in Glove, sold more than 20,000 units within 3 days of release in the UK alone. Her appearance in stilettos on Top of the Pops, with the Smiths playing barefoot, is legendary in music history. Sandie starts to love singing and performing again. Her son, Jack, was born in 1985. 1986. She releases 2 more singles, Are You Ready to Be Heartbroken, and Frederick, also taking part in radio performance sessions and promotions with a new young band of musicians. 1987. Sandie is deeply affected by the AIDS epidemic, as many of her dearest friends are dying. She takes part in concerts, awareness campaigns and fundraisers for AIDS-related causes, including Brixton Academy World AIDS Day, the Stand By Me AIDS Day benefit concert with George Michael, and various gay pride concerts. She pays nightly visits to the AIDS ward at Middlesex Hospital, where she supports patients one-on-one and entertains them with Madonna's racy photographic book. 1988. With the release of the self-penned album, Hello Angel, acclaimed as one of the year's finest, and a single, Nothing Less Than Brilliant, Sandie is reinvented as a Renaissance woman for the 80s, and becomes the definitive cross-generational cult heroine. Reviews announce that the Queen is back, giving her a new generation of fans. This reputation is further established by a string of university tours, concerts, TV appearances and videos. She also tours Japan for the first time. I was so happy, I had finally become the artist I had always wanted to be. I had found my voice, she says. The book received great reviews. Part 3. 1990. This year heralds a complete change of life direction, as Sandie moves from performing front of stage to working behind the scenes to follow her passion for justice and fairness. A time of giving back for the incredible privilege of having had so many opportunities opened to her in her life. She particularly wants to help women, music artists, young people and the working class community she was born into, to give back to them. She starts writing an autobiographical book, after her husband Nick gives her an Amstrad with a personalized word count for Christmas. 1991. HarperCollins publishes her best-selling, acclaimed book, The World at My Feet, which she wrote without any assistance from a ghostwriter. I discovered I had an eloquent, underused mind. I wanted to use it, she says. The book received some great reviews, a fine book by a hugely underrated artist. It's unfortunate that the dictates of time and cool so often inhibit any kind of accurate appreciation of pop artists. But Sandie's story and her art cry out for a far subtler, more reasoned revaluation. Her book is testimony to a great spirit, humble, intelligent, self-analytical in the smartest way. And beyond that, of course, is her musical gift, and the great legacy of work she's given us. I cannot recommend this book enough, both as a worthy, life-affirming memoir, and as a device to prompt us back to a body of extraordinary work, still, thankfully, available. Treat yourself. Revisit Sandie Shaw. In this mesmerizing story, told with zest, humor and soul-searching honesty, Sandie Shaw reveals herself as a true original, a woman who, despite reaching astounding highs and profoundly depressing lows, has never lost touch with her infectious vitality and resilient spirit. It will grip you to the very last page. Company, a moving story of a woman learning to take control of her life. A delight, today, engrossing Daily Telegraph. During her career, her experiences and those of others have led her to become aware that the world of music and the creative arts is a highly stressful, potentially exploitative, and harmful environment, and that there are numerous unnecessary mental health casualties and deaths, with no help available for them. She wants to do something about it. Sandie needs to go to university, but has no educational qualifications except for a few random O levels. She submits her book as a degree application to Birkbeck College, part of the University of London. The insights of her book and her understanding of Eastern Buddhist philosophy are considered equivalent to a first-degree qualification, so she is offered a postgraduate place to train in counseling and psychotherapy. Over time, with more training, she becomes a fully qualified counseling psychotherapist and gains more experience working with adolescents, young adults, and creatives. She begins working for psychiatric and psychological consultant services, taking further training on all clinical aspects of mental health and treatment. She also has the benefit of personal mentoring from eminent psychiatric and psychotherapeutic consultant Dr. Sidney Crown, fondly known as the media shrink. 1997. She achieves her dream of founding the Arts Clinic, the first ever mental health advice and treatment service offered to all members of the creative community. As part of psychiatric and psychological consultant services, the Arts Clinic can deliver a complete service from qualified, multidisciplined clinicians and doctors. First, it is a difficult sell, as people are reluctant to admit they are having mental health difficulties, unless they want the publicity of being exposed to the press. However, the Arts Clinic becomes known for its discretion and specialist treatment, and soon individuals and organizations from all parts of the creative industry start using the service. Over the following years, Sandie runs and promotes the Arts Clinic and its clinicians, who treat not just artists, but anyone involved in the creative process, from superstars, TV producers, record label receptionists, and actors to makeup artists, writers, lighting engineers, anyone, at any stage in their career embracing the whole creative community. Some can pay, some cannot. For these, funding is made available. Almost 3 decades later, mental health and well-being have now become an important part of a creative career, and the working environment, particularly in the music industry, which has begun to become a more humane and enlightened workplace. It is now common practice for this community to seek support. 1998. After giving a music conference keynote speech on music, mental health and fame, Sandie is recognized by the Royal Society of Musicians as an honorary professor of music. She remains the first and only popular music artist to be given this honor. The British Association of Songwriters and Composers, now the Ivors Academy, gave her the Gold Badge Award for an outstanding contribution to music. 2000 to 2002. Sandie puts together a marketing strategy to review her entire recording career for a relaunch. She begins with a legal battle to establish ownership of the earliest part of her recordings to complete her ownership of the rest of her huge record catalogue of over 300 recordings. No other UK artist of her generation has attempted to do this, as they, like Sandie, have always been warned against fighting the record labels. With their immense wealth and power, it is also deemed a hugely costly exercise that few can afford. Many lawyers and much legal advice later, she and her team of exec PA, the wonderful Louise Voss, and her husband, Tony, meticulously prepare her case themselves. After 2 years of preparation, she finally succeeds in establishing that she is indeed the rightful producer and owner of all her earliest recordings. These, when added to her post-1967 recordings, which she has always produced and owned herself, complete her entire catalogue. She is the only artist of her generation to achieve this. Now, for the first time, her collective work comes together to meet new technology in a coordinated, artist-promoted marketing campaign. All this while, she continues her work at the Arts Clinic. She also buys land in the West Indies and marries her present husband, Tony, there in the new year, gaining her 2 stepchildren, Anushka and Toby, that makes 5 kids. 2003 to 2005. Sandie entrusts Tries Penner with the remastering and digitizing, at Abbey Road Studios, of her recordings, and she licenses her catalogue worldwide to EMI. It kicks off with a box set of 4 CDs titled Nothing Comes Easy, which attracts a flurry of low-key media interviews. This is followed by 2 more new album releases in French and Italian, Pourvu que c'est dur, and La Cantata Scalza. She continues to release digitally remastered tracks from the Sandie Shaw catalog on EMI, including a German CD album, Wiederhopf Mai, and a Spanish one, Marionetas en la Cuerda. This is rapidly followed by albums reviewing the situation, and Hello Angel, all with bonus previously unreleased tracks. Then came the releases of all her digitized English-language albums. Further releases on EMI are The Very Best of Sandie Shaw, Puppet on a String and 2 double album CDs, Sandie and Me, The Sandie Shaw Supplement, and Love Me. Please Love Me, all accompanied by more unreleased tracks. Her husband Tony passes his pilot test and buys his first plane, a Raleigh. They fly back and forth around the UK and over to France, where they have a riverside home that was formerly a watermill. Sandie becomes a grandmother to Ella Sophia, her stepson to Toby's first child. She takes on a more executive role as the clinical director on the Psychiatric and Psychological Consultant Services Clinical Board, representing counseling and psychotherapy. 2005. She is invited by the Queen to Buckingham Palace to celebrate British music and admires her Rubens collection with Kate Bush. 2006. During her recent label litigation experience, Sandie discovered that recording copyrights last for only 50 years. She realizes this will affect many artists in their twilight years, who will no longer receive income from their recordings. She also learns that session musicians and orchestras receive no portion of recording royalties. She now seeks to change this situation. She speaks to all the powerful stakeholders, first to the chair of EMI Eric Nicoli, who is shocked to hear that his label's assets will start to diminish in value every year, then to other chairs and CEOs of other record labels and rights owners. She tells them that they, too, especially with the onset of digitization and streaming, will suffer financially from this copyright situation, thus harnessing their power to support her cause. So, instead of working against artists' interests, as they have done in the past, they start working with artists to the same end. As the UK at this time was still part of the EU, a European campaign started taking shape to extend the recording copyright term from 50 to 70 years. Getting everybody on board was the first step in a long and drawn-out task that will require Sandie's patience, consistency, and determination over many years, and did not reach complete fruition until 2013. The second granddaughter, Delisme, was born to her daughter, Grace. 2007 to 2008. She celebrates her 60th birthday and the 40th anniversary of her Eurovision win in the spring. She also finally concedes to cosmetic surgery on her feet. She explains, "I am very grateful that the gods designed me rather attractively from the top down. However, when they got to my ankles, they must have gone on a tea break." Meanwhile, she continues to lobby for the campaign for recording copyright term extension throughout Europe, while also concentrating more on Buddhist activities with SGI UK. She celebrates 30 years of Buddhist practice with friends at the Under the Walnut Tree party. Her stepson, Toby, fathers a son, Jake. 2009. On hearing about her copyright campaign work, the founding directors of the Featured Artist Coalition, FAC, invited her to join them. This is the world's first organization to represent the rights and interests of recording artists. The FAC is formed with directors including Annie Lennox, Robbie Williams, Ed O'Brien of Radiohead, Nick Mason of Pink Floyd, Billy Bragg, Fran Healy of Travis, and Mark Kelly from Marillion. In a digital world where things are rapidly changing, recording artists need representation to shape and contribute towards the new order. This is Sandie's chance to help make that possible by becoming a director. But she finds out that the FAC is in a chaotic state. Sadly, they have wasted their initial funding on unnecessarily expensive lawyers brought in by music managers and overpaid staff. Although the ambition of the founders is inspirational and passionate, it is still in a startup position, with no real leadership of the board. The rest of the music industry regards it with suspicion, nicknaming it the Taliban. With support from the other directors, Sandie puts together a 3-year strategic plan for the FAC to give it focus and recognition. She is voted in as executive chair. Aware of the historically misogynistic culture of the music industry, Sandie requests that Ed O'Brien of Radiohead and Nick Mason of Pink Floyd become vice chairs as backup. The FAC begins introducing themselves in the House of Commons to all party MPs and ministers, select committees, as well as members of the House of Lords, to inform them of their ambitions and gather support. They argue that for the future, change is needed to establish new practices better suited to the music industry is in a rapidly evolving digital world. Historic practices that are unfair and inequitable need to be addressed. They are taken aback by their warm welcome and politicians' desire to listen to them. Finally, FAC recording artists are taking a seat at the table rather than merely being on the menu. Jeremy Hunt, the Culture Secretary, invites Sandie to be an honorary guest at the DCMS, Department of Culture, Media and Sport, Staff Awards ceremony. A thank you note was sent. You injected humor and really helped build anticipation for the event, as well as conveying a real sense of warmth and affection for the staff who work here. Feedback from the staff has been universally excellent. Thank you for everything you did to help make the event such a success. She is multitasking, running the arts clinic, and campaigning and lobbying on behalf of artists with the Featured Artists Coalition for the creative and commercial rights of recording artists and new, fairer internet business models for the digital age. Sandie's daughter, Grace, gives birth to Forrest, Sandie's third granddaughter. 2010. Sandie is asked by Lord March to curate and perform in an all-women show at the inaugural Goodwood Vintage Festival of Culture and Fashion. Her chosen theme is women covering songs originally recorded by men, but sung from a female perspective, thus turning their meaning on its head. At her first live performance in 25 years, Sandie is introduced onto the stage by Lord Ed Vaizey, former Minister of State for Culture, Media, Sport and Digital Industries, who has never spoken to such crowds. She coaches him for his performance before he goes on stage. He comes off stage in a state of shock, saying, "I have never seen or spoken to so many people in one space in my life. How do you do it?" She is approached by the producers of the award-winning film, Made in Dagenham, to sing the theme tune, written by Grammy and Emmy-winning film score composer David Arnold, and barking bard, Billy Bragg, who also happens to be a director of FAC. The film tells the story of the notorious women Ford factory workers' strike for equal pay in 1968. Barbara Castle's intervention led to the Equal Pay Act, which was passed in 1970. As a former Ford worker and Dagenham girl, this is a perfect match for Sandie. She is delighted to be made patron of a newly established alumni at her old state school, Robert Clack, in Dagenham, by the eminent headmaster Sir Paul Grant, who has been knighted for his services to education. He is a leading light and promotes an innovative, egalitarian approach to teaching, which Sandie finds inspiring. The inaugural alumni dinner is in February, when Sandie agrees to be patron, and this leads to the formal establishment of their charitable trust. She begins arranging school visits from people who have achieved success in their lives, to inspire the pupils to reach their own goals. She gives presentations in class and takes part in school concerts and award ceremonies, meeting parents and giving one-on-one encouragement sessions with sixth formers. In 2011, Sandie is coaxed by Jools Holland into joining him and his band, the Rhythm and Blues Orchestra, on a year-long farewell tour. They give her amazing support, building her confidence. She has rave reviews everywhere she performs and is wowed every night. The older audience members are reminded of 10 of their youth by the songs, and the younger members are introduced to her greatness as an artist. A fabulous way to call it a day. She compares the first Combined Artist and Manager Awards of FAC, and Music Managers Forum with Mark Kelly of Marillion. Winners are Massive Attack, Mumford & Sons, and Ed Sheeran. At the same time, she continues treating patients and running the arts clinic. 2011 in November, after 5 long years, legislation was passed in Europe, the 2011 EU Directive 2011/77 of EU to extend the copyright of recordings from 50 years to 70 years, giving recording artists 20 more years of income. Most importantly, it gives legacy recording artists, orchestras and session musicians income in their dotage. This also, of course, benefits record labels. The UK has until 2013 implemented it into UK legislation. 2013 in October, Sandie received an honorary doctorate from the University of Essex for services to music and creative communities, as a national treasure, and for inspiring generations of talented artists, which she has been doing for over half a century. Eager for some fun, she sneaks in a guest recording, singing Just Walk in My Shoes for Music of Quality and Distinction Volume 3, followed by a live promotional stage appearance, where she is introduced on stage by Boy George. 2014 The FAC has now become independent from the Music Managers Forum. Sandie acquires funding and sets about finding someone suitable to be CEO of FAC. She finds Paul Pacifico at a music label event. They start to forge a great partnership. FAC is invited into the newly formed Creative Industries Federation, a national organization to represent the interests of the UK creative industries to the UK government, the media and the public. Throughout her life, Sandie has received many wonderful awards, which now fill a container. But her most treasured award is from her hometown community, being named an honorary freewoman of the Borough of Barking and Dagenham. The most honourable distinction lies within the power of the council to confer in recognition of her musical achievements and her community work in the borough. 2022 For Record Store Day 2022, Sandie Shaw released a 12-inch vinyl of Hand in Glove featuring the Smiths. The release included a red vinyl version with a bonus promo poster and insert. It was a limited edition, featuring 3 songs, Hand in Glove, I Don't Owe You Anything, and Jean. 2023 At the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Eurovision Song Contest, due to be hosted there, as Ukraine had won the contest in 2022, was moved to Liverpool. Prime Minister Sunak requests Sandie to join him as his guest at his reception for the Ukrainian Eurovision delegation at 10 Downing Street, as an ambassador for British music and the Song for Europe. Sandie is delighted, as she has maintained a place in her heart for all the people of the former USSR, whom she had entertained and inspired during the Cold War. She shares the stage with Prime Minister Sunak and the Ukrainian entrant to the contest, dancing and singing together with an enthusiastic audience of Ukrainian artists, musicians and politicians. Oh Rishi, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey Rishi. After hearing a British midwife talking on Woman's Hour about the plight of women in Ukraine, having premature babies, because of the stress of the war, and wanting to achieve conception, when their husbands are home on leave to ensure the legacy of the Ukrainian people, without access to incubators, nappies, medicine or midwifery assistance, Sandie wants to raise awareness of the situation. She remixes Puppet on a String as a dance tune, releasing it with a wistful ballad version, with proceeds going to support the midwife in bringing the help the women, babies and children so desperately need. Sandie knows that music and culture have the soft power to move hearts and minds all over the world. Liverpool Town Council asks her to perform the song live at the outside stadium for all those Liverpudlians unable to afford a ticket to the Eurovision Contest 2024. Sandie is still contributing to everything important in life and music.